Before we formally kick off today, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, actually the many lands on which we meet today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So to kick off, I'm actually going to hand over to Tony. So Tony Avery is our Director of Planning here at Council, and also a very experienced, obviously, female leader from across the sector, but worked in New South Wales, in Queensland, many different local governments, so brings a lot of experience. So Tony's going to host today. So Tony, over to you. Thanks very much, Ben. Appreciate that, that introduction and welcome. So look, first of all, I just would like to let you know about the format for today and introduce the panel members. So we're going to have a series of we're going to have a presentation to start with, just to provide some background about being in council, running for local government, and I suppose the machinery of government that's around that. And we also want to provide some information about Wollondilly Shire. And then we'll move into a short break and we'll come back to questions and answers. And we have our panel members available to help us provide you with some background from their personal experiences in local government. So I think we can go to, what's the next slide, ladies? Oh, okay. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'll come back and I'll introduce the panel members, and then I will hand over to Councillor Hannan, who will introduce the Australian Local Government Women's Association and thank them for their involvement today. So first of all, as Ben said, I'm Tony Avery, and I'm just going to be hosting the session today, and I really want to thank the CEO for coming along and supporting women in local government. I think it's really important that leadership at all levels and of all genders, both genders, actually support women in local government. It can't just be women. So thanks very much, Ben. So to my right, I would like to welcome Councillor Judith Hannan to the panel today. Councillor Hannan has been with Wollondilly Council for a very long time. I think it's 20 years, Councillor? 17 years. And she brings a wealth of experience, and she'll be sharing that experience with you all a bit later on. And I'd also like to welcome on the screen Councillor Tina Ayett. And Councillor Ayett is joining us, kindly joining us online. She's joined us as a councillor from Liverpool Council, and we really appreciate her being here today. Councillor Hannan is the only female councillor we have at Wollondilly, so we've had to reach out, and we really appreciate Councillor Ayett making herself available today. She actually has 3 young children at home this morning, so we all know what it's like to balance those requirements on a busy Saturday morning. So thank you very much, Councillor Ayett, and we look forward to hearing from you a bit later on about your experiences in local government as well. And over on my left, I have Ali Dench. Ali's been with Wollondilly Shire Council as an officer for some 17, 18 years. And so she also has a wealth of experience, particularly a great knowledge about Wollondilly Shire. So we'll be inviting Ali to share some of that. She's worked with many councillors, male and female councillors over the years, and can also bring that experience into the discussion a bit later on. So thanks for that. What we might do is move to the next slide, and I'd like to hand over to Councillor Hannan to give you a bit of background to ALGWA and to introduce the ALGWA representative who is here with us today.
Good morning, everyone. So when I first joined council, I was unaware of any particular support for women until we had a little women's issue in council, and I looked out to see what support I could get, and came up with this amazing group of women called ALGWA. So it's Australian Local Government Women's Association. Today, we're really lucky. We've got Bev Spearpoint here, who was on the board for many years of the New South Wales branch of ALGWA. And please correct me, are you a life member, Bev? A life member of ALGWA. They're really an interesting group of women. They range from councillors and staff, mayors, deputy mayors, all sorts of women across the whole sector. And they run some interesting conferences, and they're different sorts of conferences to what you will get in the general area. But the conferences, I believe, are actually better for everyone, male or female, because they give you real stuff that you can actually incorporate into your life at council. So they take an active role, and they've developed a lot of presentations to try and encourage women to actually run for council, because we're 51% of the population, and that's what we should have around the table, because council, it's as close as you can get to our families, and women should be perhaps even in the majority in that area. So welcome, but ALGWA is something, and you can actually contact them even if you're interested in running for council to see what information they have for you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hannan. And it's really great that Bev's here and that we're able to have the association support in running this session. As Councillor Hannan said, women are 51% of the population. We have one female councillor. Councillors really need to be representative of their whole community, and therefore we need more women on council, and in fact more women in government at all levels. So that's a great initiative. Thank you. We might just move on to the next slide. And I just want to give you a little bit of a history of Wollondilly, a little bit of an overview. Those of you who are Wollondilly residents probably know all this, but it's always helpful to just recap it. And it's important to acknowledge the fabulous history that we have in Wollondilly, and the values and the attributes that we value in Wollondilly. The council was first established in 1906. But interestingly, it didn't include Picton until 1940. Maybe a lot of people don't know that. I certainly didn't know that. So that's quite interesting. It was amalgamated in 1940. So that's the council that we have today. The size of the Shire is quite remarkable too when you compare it with some of our neighbouring councils. It's 2,560 square kilometres. So it's a huge area. It has a lot of natural beauty, which we're very particular about protecting. The Shire is home to Sydney's water catchment. Essentially, we hold we have the Warragamba and the Cataract dams. We obviously have wonderful rivers and creeks and streams, and they're all part of that important water catchment for Sydney. We've got an important role to play in protecting those water services and storage areas for the whole of Greater Sydney, and protecting the fabulous environment in which we live, protecting koala habitat, and protecting the Cumberland Plain woodland areas that we have within the Shire. At the same time, we're growing, and it's a challenging balancing act to ensure that we can have growth while still protecting all that makes Wollondilly special. That's a key role of council as we go forward. Council's role in the community is to represent the whole of the community. And I think that's something that may be discussed later on, particularly from our representatives on the panel. The role of a councillor is important because you're so close to the council, you're close to the community. Local government is the closest level of government to the community, and it has an influence on day-to-day life in terms of what happens with residents every day of their lives, much more so than other levels of government. And sometimes it's underrated, but I think it's really important that we highlight exactly what local government does, sometimes very seamlessly and invisibly. The role, the Wollondilly Council has a series of 5 key themes, which defines how we deliver services. All councils are required in local government to work within a corporate planning framework which sets our objectives and responsibilities out. And it's in a framework around the community. So key to that is a process and document called the Community Strategic Plan. And it's a really good time to be coming into council because we're going to be starting to refresh and renew that Community Strategic Plan early in this term. That Community Strategic Plan influences our delivery program and our annual operational plan and budget. And I won't go too much into that. There will be a lot more information about that at our next candidate information session, which will be running on a weeknight, and we'll be encouraging all candidates male and female to consider coming along to that, and there'll be a lot more detailed information. We really wanted to focus today on the role of female councillors. Can I move on to the next slide, please? So just a little bit more about Wollondilly. The current population as of the 2020 census is 54,000. It's growing significantly. We expect to double our population by 2036. And that's largely around our major growth area, which is Wilton. We're also investing in supporting our 15 towns and villages. And in the first instance, our focus is on Picton. We are looking at place planning for other towns and villages. But at the moment, council's investing in planning for a new precinct in Picton, and it's incredibly exciting. Again, as newly elected councillors, you would be involved in that process. We're planning for a new performing arts centre on the corner of Colden Street and Menangle Street. We're refurbishing and upgrading the Shire Hall while preserving all of its heritage and history. And that will be the home of the councillors. That will be where the chambers are located, back in their home, which I think is really exciting. Again, it's something that newly elected councillors will be able to look forward to. The other big part of that project, the Performing Arts Centre is also going to have community space, and we're looking at a new library facility, gallery and community meeting spaces. But we're also building a new government services building, which will be the home of the administration centre for council. This is incredibly exciting, and it is about transforming Picton. And we're not forgetting about the rest of the Picton area, because we're undertaking a major place planning process, which will set the vision for the future of Picton, and it will be able to support investment in by private and government sector areas, and bringing more people into this town centre and providing more things to do, more activities, more business opportunities, and somewhere to meet, somewhere to be entertained, and somewhere for families. And I think important to note in that, key to that is essentially it's the town square, which will be a green space for meetings and gatherings. I might just mention the local strategic planning statement, which is a document called Wollondilly 2040. A lot of information today, but just to note, this sets our vision for planning, land use planning. This is what we build, what we support in the Shire, and it has a wonderful vision statement which is captured on that screen, and it is about trying to blend the balance of supporting the new growth and the opportunities that that brings, while at the same time protecting all that makes Wollondilly special, and that's the historic villages, the modern living, rural lands and bush. It's an exciting time to be joining council. What I might do now is hand over to Ali, and she will talk about some of the responsibilities of councillors and give you a bit more information about the governance framework around being on council.
Thanks, thanks, Tony. Yeah, thanks. Welcome, everybody, and those online, and welcome everyone here in the gallery. It's really, really exciting to see so many women here this morning interested in running as a candidate for Wollondilly. My role here, I'm actually Executive Director for Community and Corporate, and have been in this role now for, since 2009, so it's quite a while working in the executive level. And that's something that we've been striving for through ALGWA, is to get more women voted, not only in council as a councillor, but also in some of the senior roles within council. So very grateful and privileged to be in this role alongside Tony on the executive. Councillor responsibilities is what I wanted to have a little chat about this morning. We often wonder, why don't we have more women running in the roles of councillors? Sometimes it seems to be very overwhelming and look as though it's a difficult role to take on, when really it's a learning experience and a wonderful experience to be able to take on board. And those responsibilities are supported by a whole framework and a whole network of support to enable you to be able to do your job and your role as efficiently, effectively, and also as fulfilling as possible. So community advocacy and representation is one of the biggest part of the role. Passion, being passionate about your community, passionate about what the needs are, looking at how we can advance things in the area, and also too, how can we maintain and keep a hold of our history, our culture, and with that growth that's coming that Tony was talking about. So the role essentially is about how you advocate for your community, how you advocate for what the needs are in the area, and being, as we've said this morning, the closest level of government to people, it's a really, really important role. You're there to have a say, and you're there to represent the views, particularly of those that don't have a voice. So you become that voice for the community. There is a strategic policy overview. So there's a strategy. So when we talk about strategy and strategic policy, it's about the vision. It's about where we want to head, what we want to do, what we need to focus on, and what are the key areas that we need to be looking at. Wollondilly does have a very big history of rural living, of being an agricultural community, but it's also a hidden gem. It's not been one of those areas that's up on the spotlights like the Highlands or the mountains or the Hawkesbury. It's one of those little hidden gems, and I think that's been one of the secrets of us being able to continue and maintain some of the cultural history of the area. But the strategic policy development with growth, we're looking at how we're going to balance how we're going to grow, because for us to be able to develop the infrastructure that's needed, we have to grow. There's got to be a certain element of growth. But how do we then balance that to maintain what the community is telling us they want? So there's a strategic policy overview, which has been discussed through the community strategic plan. Now, the community strategic plan is the whole community's plan. It's not council's plan. Council has a role in which to develop that plan. And our delivery program is our response as council of what we're going to do. But as a councillor, the role is to advocate for that plan for other levels of government, other agencies and other people to help implement what that community strategic vision and view is. So as a councillor, you have oversight of that strategic plan and the delivery program, and also looking at our operational plan. A delivery program is a 4-year view, and our operational plan is a 1-year view. It's virtually about the budget. It's about how we're going to spend the dollars, where we're going to how we're going to focus on those key areas, looking at where we're going to get dollars from. So the operational plan sets out how we're going to get income, and also then how we're going to expend that income. And that is in line with what the community's needs and views are. The other role is around service delivery priorities. What's the focus? One of the biggest areas that challenges that we face, a lot of is in our roads. Wollondilly has over 890 kilometres of road in which to maintain, to rebuild, to look after. But also in amongst that mix, we have other obligations, a library, children's services, waste collection, our garbage. That's one of the main roles for council. Looking at how we're going to be providing planning services, how are we looking after the land and environmental services. So yes, the roads are a main focus because we have poor public transport. It's the way in which we travel, the way in which we connect, and it's really important. But it's also important to remember the other types of services that council is responsible for delivering as well. And that can become a bit of a challenge when you're looking at how you disperse the dollars that you've got. But that's all a part of working together as a team and looking at how we can meet the needs and how we can provide for the community. So it's around funding allocation for projects. Council applies for grant funding, external from state government and federal government, and also too from other areas such as we're a mining community. So there is grants available through different types of like resources for region programs of where we can actually add to the budget to get people's needs met. We consult regularly with community organisations and other key holders around decision making. So as a role of the council, you'll have a leadership role on how we engage, how we run our forums, and in the decision making. Ultimately, the way in which decisions are made, it is as a team, 9 councillors led by a mayor. We'll be every month have a meeting to discuss those decisions, and you'll be a part of that decision making. So there's quite a lot of responsibilities there, but there's lots of support in place to help. As council officers, we're here to provide information. We're here to help answer your questions. And one of the biggest roles and responsibilities of a councillor is to be asking those questions and asking what it is we need to be looking at. And if you're not sure, we're here to give you that support. So a bit of a toolkit here for in your role as a councillor. Passion for social justice in your community would be the essence of the role of a councillor, because it's about the community. Good communication and interpersonal skills. It's about the ability to be able to listen, learn, how you advocate, negotiate and mediate. And we can also help any potential new councillors in helping you to develop those skills. Don't feel as though you have to be perfect. You don't have to have all those skills refined and ready for you to jump in. It's about your journey and about how you support the community, and we're here to support you in that role. And we can help provide with training, with information, to assist you to develop those skills that you need. Strategic thinking. So strategic thinking is about the big vision and where we're heading and where we're going to. Council officers implement the operational side of the business, because it is a big business run council. And the council's role is about the strategy and the big thinking, where we want to go, what we want to do, how we're going to get there. It is part of that big strategic thing. So it's about thinking outside the square and how do we solve some of the issues and some of the problems that we have in the community, but it's also looking at opportunities. And we're here as council officers to assist you in that role. Good organisation and time management. Well, I don't know who else would have good organisation and time management skills. I think as women, we are constantly juggling, constantly looking at running the household and working at the same time. The organisational skills and time management is something I think a lot of women have wonderful skills in. But again, we're here to help with any resources to assist you with that, such as we've got lots of systems within council. We can provide you with equipment, computers, phones, all those sort of things are provided for council in your role to enable you to manage your time and organisational skills as much as possible. I've already talked about a good understanding of strategic planning and financial management. There is lots of governance, there's lots of rules and regulations within councils. A lot of people think, oh, this red tape, what's it all there for? At the end of the day, a lot of that is there to help protect you as a councillor in your decision making, and also protect the residents as well. There's got to be a framework, there's got to be a structure from which we actually make our decisions and implement decisions, because that enables fair and equitable distribution of resourcing, and also it enables a framework for when things go wrong, that you're protected. So, but there is a whole system in place around decision making to assist you around governance. You don't have to know all that up front. You don't have to be an expert in that particular area. We have a governance section within council that can help explain. We have policies, procedures in place that we are trying to make as plain English as possible for people to understand. We also have access for you to legal advice and legal support in assisting you in any decision making or understanding. I think one of the biggest parts in this particular area, which prevents a lot of women from running as a councillor, is thinking that you need to know everything and you need to know what all those rules and everything are. You don't. You just need to know what questions to ask and not be afraid to ask questions. And of course, the question you don't ask often is the silly question. It's very important to ensure that you keep an open mindset and not to worry about what questions to ask. Because we're here to support and here to provide all those resources for you. One of the other strong parts of the toolkit for councillors that we can assist you is in your leadership around confidence, energy, enthusiasm. Really, that's all you need. Honesty, resilience, and of course, humour is a really good part of becoming a part of a greater team. So they're just some of the things that maybe we'll talk about when we're on the panel as to why it sometimes can prevent women from wanting to run as a councillor, when really there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to, because there's so many supports in place now to enable women to be able to take up the role of councillor, plus also to continue in whatever role you want to do, whether you're working full-time, caring, working as a volunteer in the community. We're here to help support you in doing that as well. So yeah, cool. So that's some of the toolkits that we've got and supports we've got in place.
Thanks, Ali.
Yeah.
I think that's a great overview of the pathway to being a councillor. I think that not only in terms of our democratic system, in terms of running for office, but even in terms of applying for positions, qualified positions, we often find that women, I suppose, they underrate themselves. They don't see themselves as competitive as their male colleagues, and we really want to turn that around. We want to turn that around in terms of the positions that we advertise for staff here at council, and certainly we want to turn that around in terms of women putting themselves forward to run for council. I really like the image that's on the next slide, because I think it sums up some of what Ali was saying there, and certainly what our councillors Hannan and Councillor Ayett can attest to. When we get to the panel discussion, I want to ask them about that in particular, but I know that they've both had experience juggling children. Oh, it's gone off.
It's all right, it just went off for a second. We're back.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. My technical issue. Yes, I know that they've both had experience juggling children, family life, husbands, outside interests, whether that's jobs or volunteer organisations or any other commitments, as well as being a councillor. And so I think it'll be useful to draw on that, because I know that's sometimes something that may hold women back from putting themselves forward. But, you know, there we have the young mum. Maybe she's a councillor and she's juggling her children and her iPad and her family commitments. And certainly Councillor Ayett is doing that today, and we really appreciate her putting the time in to be with us. So there is a lot of support available. So Ali's gone through a lot of that, but this is some of the more formal support that's available to councillors. There is an allowance. We won't go through the detail of that today. There's obviously going to be training and induction sessions for our newly elected council. You will have tools of the trade, be it an iPad or a laptop or telephone, access to internet, support with training, our wonderful IT officers, one of whom is here today. Thank you, Tim, supporting us and making all this happen. We have a great help desk and everything is digital, and we certainly will support any councillors in working through those new tools if they're not familiar with them. There's also other provisions around reimbursement for other expenses that may arise. We do provide the opportunity for training that's covered by council as well. There's carers expenses available while performing council duties. From July next year, there will be superannuation for councillors, and there is a newly appointed position that hasn't yet started, but she'll be starting in the next couple of weeks, I believe. And we've got a dedicated executive assistant for the mayor and councillors. That's part of our commitment to growing our organisation to meet the growing needs of our Shire. And we're really excited about that role because it's going to provide a much higher level of support to our councillors. Thank you, Lexi.
So this is just a diagram here about the government framework, just to give an understanding that there's 3 levels of government that we have. Of course, the federal government, state government, and also local councils. So just to sort of give it a little bit of an overview of what the actual levels of responsibility are. So it's federal government, their matters that they deal with are things such as Medicare, defence, immigration and foreign policy. So that's in the realm of federal government. That's their responsibility to ensure programs and resourcing and everything's in place for those particular areas. When it comes to state government, but yeah, there's sometimes a bit of an overlap between local government and state government. But the roles in state government are things around such as roads, and I'm talking major roads, state roads like highways and major state roads, housing, in prisons, things like public transport is the role, police, ambulance services, education services, hospitals, health services. So that's the realm and the role of state government to provide. Local government is very much around, I suppose you could call us really more so local administration for the state government in regards to administering a lot of state legislation and state policies. So local government is responsible for the on-the-ground town planning matters, looking at place space, so looking at areas around of the Wollondilly local government area. So things like Appin and how that township's to be shaped. As Tony said, Picton and the main heart sort of centre of Wollondilly is your Picton, Thilmere, Tarmore areas. So council's role is looking at land use issues at a local level. We also, some councils are responsible for sewage. This area we're not. Some councils are responsible for their water. We're not in Wollondilly, okay? So Sydney Water, it is a state responsibility, the sewerage is. So that's where there's some sort of overlap and misunderstanding, could be sometimes from people in the community, about what council should be delivering or could be delivering. We look after local roads and we also look after the rubbish collection. Local government historically, roads, rates and rubbish is really, has historically been the core essence of what local government does. That, however, has increased over the years, where it is a lot of it around advocacy. We've moved further away from just roads, rates and rubbish, where we have library services, we have children's services, we have services with our animal shelter and looking after how we maintain companion animals is the responsibility of local government. So when you're out there campaigning and someone says, right, we want a hospital, and we want you as a candidate to get us a hospital, that's something that council can't actually physically deliver. We don't have the budget for it. It's not really our responsibility. However, it's our role to advocate for the community. And that's where we look at that strategic view and overview of how can we get those issues into our community strategic plan so as we can advocate for that on behalf of the community, state and federal government. It's like public transport. Our role is to look at a lot of our connections and connectivity issues. Digital is a very big issue now. That's becoming like a piece of public plumbing, I suppose you could say. Digital is now becoming like, and so we advocate. It's not our role to actually provide digital services. Again, that's a federal government issue, but it's our role to advocate for that. So it's starting just to understand how the 3 levels of government work together and how we work in a collaborative partnership to do that. So I'm just bringing this issue up because if you're out there campaigning or out there wanting to support the community, be very careful not to make too many promises that you mightn't be able to keep. It will make your role really difficult if you are successful on council in delivering those promises. So it's good to get a good understanding. And again, we're here as council officers to help assist you in the understanding of the systems, our roles, and what we're able to do and go from there. So
thanks, Hannan. Yeah, that's great. That's a great overview, because I know that many members of the community are a bit confused about who's responsible for what in terms of government services. We usually get blamed for most of the things that aren't right. So it's good to remind the community who's responsible for what. But we're very happy to advocate to the right level of government if there's a problem. We might just quickly go through this one. I'll just jump back to that if I can. This is a really important year. Again, I said it was a great time to be running for council. It's a really important year for a number of reasons. So you might be aware that we actually had the last term of council extended by a year because of the COVID scenario. So the last term of council was 5 years. It is a normal 4-year term, but it was 5 years this last term. The next term of council will only be 3 years because it's going to be brought back into alignment with the normal 4-year term. So that's an exciting change. So you run for council, you've got 3 years. It's a good introduction to see if it's really something you want to do. It's also a big year for Wollondilly because this is the first year we're going to have a popularly elected mayor. In the past, the mayor has been selected by the councillors. This year, the community is going to select the mayor, and it's the first time for Wollondilly. It's a huge step forward, and I think it marks another part of our journey in terms of growth. We are moving from a rural council. We're still defined as peri-urban because we're just outside the major urban centre, but we're moving from a rural council to a growth council. And part of that means that we've got to ramp up our capacity to plan for that growth and deliver for those future communities. And having a popularly elected mayor is part of our maturity journey, I think. There's also another change happening whereby councils, distribution of councillors is going from 3 wards, which is where councillors are allocated to different areas of the Shire, to 2 wards. That's another change. It probably moves councillors to be looking at the Shire maybe more holistically. I'm not sure. For some councillors, it may not be their preference because they feel very closely connected to their community. My personal view is that that's still very possible. We can still have councillors who are very connected to their particular town or village among our 15 towns or villages, but they're also taking a whole of Shire view and looking after the whole community. So it's part of the change as well. The screen there just gives you a framework for you to determine if you're eligible, and they're not onerous requirements. I think most of us in this room are over 18, so that's a tick. And the others are normal requirements for office within Australia.
It's interesting, the third dot point there too. We've in the past had councillors, or actually have had some women who wanted to run but thought they couldn't because they weren't a resident of Wollondilly, but they own a business in Wollondilly. So we have had councillors who aren't residents but actually have significant connection to the area. That still makes you eligible to run as a councillor.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Ali.
Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely. We've got one more slide before morning tea, I believe, and this is just some key dates. It's a busy slide, so I'd urge you to get a copy of that from the handouts at the back of the room for those people who are here with us today, and certainly we can distribute these to any of our online viewers today. So important to note all of those dates. Probably the dates around closing of candidate nominations, the 4th of August at 12 p.m. So if you're interested in running, don't forget to get your nomination before that date. We then go into what's called a caretaker period here at council. And what that means is that council is the business of council continues, but we're unable to enter into any major financial obligations for the organisation going forward, because that needs to be a decision as part of that strategic and policy setting role of council. And if we don't have elected councillors operating at that time, then clearly we can't make those commitments. So that's an important one. We'll keep the wheels turning, but we won't be entering into major financial commitments. There's some other dates there around postal votes and so on. If you're voting, the election day is the 4th of September, big day, and the results will be declared progressively after the 7th of September. We may not have decisions straight away, and we'll obviously need to respond to that as it unfolds. But they're important dates to note. Thanks, Lexi. I think that was the last slide before morning tea. It is. So look, thanks everyone for listening. That's probably the most that we're going to do talking at you. What we're going to do after a 15-minute break is invite our panel members to tell us about their experiences, and that'll include the CEO, Mr. Ben Taylor. So thanks, we'll see you after 15 minutes. Thank you. Here we are. We all know, we're on notice, everyone. And we'll just see if Councillor Ayett is available to join us again. Yep, she's there. Oh, good, great.
Hello.
Thank
Hi,
you.
sorry, I just missed that when you reconvened. I was just downstairs with the little one.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Councillor Ayett. We really appreciate you being here because I think that what you're experiencing now is really important to for us to explore a little bit more, because we know that women have lots of commitments, and it's so important to be able to juggle all of those. And we think that you've got lots of experience to draw on with what you're managing at the moment, and obviously Councillor Hannan has too, with what she's managed over her career. So look, we're going to have questions and answers in this session now. There won't be any more of us talking at you. We're really keen to have a much more interactive session now. We have invited our visitors here today to put any questions they have in a question box at the back of the room. So I'm not sure if we have any questions. We'll ask the girls here to check for us. And we'll also, just to remind those people online, that if you have any questions you'd like us to ask the panel members, please send them through, and the officers here will pass them on so we can have your questions answered too. So thank you for that.
Can we, do we have to write that off and that comes on the floor?
And so, yes, certainly. Thank you, Bev, for asking that question. We'll also hand over to the floor and invite questions from the floor. The written questions were really if people would prefer not to speak on this webcast at the moment. So thank you for that. So look, I might just start by asking both Councillor Hannan and Councillor Ayett about their experiences, and we thought that a question that might be helpful is to start with Councillor Hannan, and then we'll go on to Councillor Ayett. Councillor Hannan, what does a week look like in the life of a councillor from your experience?
So a week can vary. You can have a very busy week, or you can have a week with not too much on. But every Tuesday night, I know that I'm going to be in council, whether it's for a council briefing, for a council community forum, or for a council meeting. And some of that comes obviously with reading the business paper, and it does take a little bit of getting used to the business paper, but in no time flat, all of you will be able to do that. I still work as an optometrist, so I'm lucky that I locum, so I can manage time around any council events that are on in general. And yeah, so a week is, and lots of phone calls and emails from people. A lot of people will tell you that they email or ring a councillor and they don't get a call back. But I feel strongly that if they've contacted you, you should respond. Sometimes I can help them, sometimes I can't. but I see myself as the advocate between the community and the general manager and the staff to try and help them sort their issues out. I'm also happy to say, if anybody wants to follow me around for a day, I put the offer out there. You're most welcome to come with me for a day. It might be to attend a morning tea. It might be somebody with a field issue. It might be somebody with a planning issue. It might be about the master plan somewhere. But it's very interesting because it's very, very diverse and you learn so much. Just before I hand over back again, I looked around the room and I looked at the things that Ali listed as, you know, things that you should have to be a councillor. And the women that are in this room and online, and many of the women in our area already do all of those things. You're all active community members. You advocate for people. You try and promote business and things like that. So you're already doing those things. And I see council as like a family. You're like the mother of the family, and you've got a certain amount of finances. You can plan where you're going to go, but you know you've got to get food on the table, shoes on the children's feet first. If everybody might want, you know, a certain toy, and you might not be able to afford them all at the same time, but you have to work out how you're going to manage that. And that to me is what council is like. It's like my family, and getting the fairest, best outcome for all of us at the end of the day. But anybody that wants to follow me around or see what my emails are for a week or phone calls, you're most welcome to follow me, even for a couple of hours.
Thanks, Councillor Hannan. Yeah, a day in the life of a councillor. There's the offer. I know that that the CEO has also taken on that with some of the staff here, and he's been out with the grader driver and the road gang and the mowing crew. So it's an excellent way to actually gain some experience about what it's like on the ground. Councillor Ayett, we'd really love to hear from you about your what you would say would be your week and your experiences. So over to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. Pretty much it's the same as Councillor Hannan. I second everything she said, and usually my week is made up of events, briefings, a lot of advocacy and communication. We have a lot of team meetings. So I'm part of the Liberal team on Liverpool City Council, and we have quite a few meetings. So this is my first term on council, and although I'm going into my 5th year, there's still a lot of learning. So we like to have the team meetings just so all the councillors are on the same page. We're all very well informed, because we do have some councillors that have been there for quite a bit of time. I know about a lot of the issues that are ongoing for council, because there are many issues that are like that, namely in a growth area like Liverpool. And a lot of emails for myself. I don't advertise my phone number because then it would be never ending. So I find that it's better for me just to manage my emails. And usually I do emails at a very ridiculous hour. Usually it's like 1 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning while I'm still in bed, pull the laptop out, return emails, direct things to relevant managers. And I also find myself just when I'm out and about locally, you know, having lunch at a local cafe or just picking up the kids from school, that I'm continuously communicating. When people know you're on council, they like to have a chat. They like to let you know what's going on with them. They like to bring things to your attention. And, you know, sometimes it's major things that aren't in our jurisdiction that fall under state jurisdiction. And sometimes it's things that are, you know, quite small, maybe a pothole, you know, and their wheel got damaged. So it really varies, which I like very much, because you're not always doing the same thing day in and day out, and you meet so many people along the way. You meet so many constituents. Some are extremely supportive, some not so much, but it is very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ayett. I might stay with the councillors for the moment and then come to Ben and Ali with the next question, just to build on that. What would each of you say would be the most rewarding experience that you've had that you could share with us as a female councillor in local government? So maybe start with you this time, Councillor Ayett, and then we'll come to Councillor Hannan.
Sure, thank you. For me, I think it'd have to be two major ones. The first one would be seeing things come to fruition and advance, and basically the community, seeing the community move forward after council resolutions. It's something that I really love to see. And when you see things come to fruition, it's lovely. And, you know, it could be something as simple as, you know, helping a smaller community within a larger community, because these things mean so much to these small community organisations. And it might be something so simple for council. It's just a, you know, resolution on the floor of council, you know, majority of hands go up and it's resolved, but it's a major deal for these individuals or these small communities. So definitely things coming to fruition. And it's nice to see it happen during your term of council, you know, rather than you finishing up and then, you know, it coming to fruition in another term. That's why I always say that a council term is too short, because sometimes things take years to finish and to resolve, namely in Liverpool again, because we are a growth area. So it's nice to see that. And also I'd have to say a major success for me professionally, and something I'm proud of as a woman, as a mother, as a local who's elected to represent my community, is that I became the deputy mayor in my second year after being elected, and I was the first Liberal female mayor in Liverpool. So this was a major achievement, and I actually had a lot of support from my fellow councillors, directors in council, and even just constituents, you know, and a lot of the support actually came from male constituents. It was like, good on you, you know, great, good on you for having a go. So that's something that's very personal, but I think it was an achievement, not only for myself, but all women, and all women who are involved in their community and would like to see a change and would like to be involved in local politics.
Thanks, Councillor Ayett. That's fantastic. I understand that at the time, Liverpool was actually leading the way with a female mayor, a female deputy mayor, and a female CEO. So go Liverpool.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Hannan, over to you, please.
Well, and I agree with the instances of things not being delivered until the next term on. That's sometimes frustrating, but it's good to see them actually delivered anyway. I'd say to everyone here that there are not one thing usually is one person's effort. For me, it's about the team. It's about having all your councillors working together, and that's how you'll actually deliver things much faster and with a much better outcome than if you try and run something individually. Some of my passions and things that I've really enjoyed over the time are not necessarily the growth areas. I've got some particular issues on some of those areas, but for me, it's about the peripheral areas of our council. And certainly in Warragamba, we've got a all abilities playground, and I raised some money specifically for that and fought to get that delivered. So that was really good. To have Appen now having its own skate park, it was a thing that somebody raised with me, and we got all the children together and we delivered a skate park out there. In Bargo, there were other people involved, but we certainly got the RFS shed rebuilt out there. So sometimes it's about the periphery, not necessarily, and it's not necessarily gender-based, but it's about everybody working together. And you've got to fight for those issues and get other councillors on board to help you. I enjoyed some of the fundraiser events we've had. We've certainly had barn dances. We had a car trial. And some of that money I actually donated specifically to prostate cancer, because I wanted to show that it wasn't about me being a female, it was about the entire community. And I think you need to have that in your mind all the time. I guess personally, one of the things that I can probably take credit for personally is that we joined up with the city deal, the Western Sydney city deal. And during that process, they talked about many of the things, and there were some big councils there. There's certainly Liverpool, Liverpool, Penrith, and Campbelltown, which are really big councils. And they came up with some money for a livability fund. And this livability fund, the other councils wanted to divide it up on their population or very many ways that really would have left us with such an insignificant amount. And fortunately, I had some support from the Mayor of Fairfield. And firstly, I said, well, let's not divide it up on population, let's divide it up on land area. And nobody was very keen on that. You can understand why. But at the end of the day, whilst other projects, yes, they're getting more resources from it, we actually got an equal share of that livability fund. So we got, I think it was $17 million from the livability fund, which has allowed us to add on and actually start to do some of the pits and precinct, some of the gym equipment and things everywhere else. And our councillors as a group decide where that goes. But personally, I felt really great that we got an equal share. And it did take some mediating, advocating to do that. But, you know, that for me was a great outcome. But the little things, when you make somebody happy about, you know, it might be a pensioner with a driveway that they can't get over, or yeah, somebody that hasn't got a phone or a light that's missing, some of those things. Or one time there was a young lady whose father had died and she was really scared that Santa wasn't going to find her that Christmas. And yeah, we got the Christmas lights going in that particular area. And I got this beautiful little letter back saying, I know that Santa will find our house this year. So that's probably one of my majors.
Is that a regular state government? Right? Where did you say the money came from?
It was City Deals, Western Sydney City Deal. It was a special group that we're in. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hannan. Thank you, Councillor Ayett. That's great. And I think the messages from there, it's not just about the big picture decisions of council, it's about the small things that mean so much to individuals or individual community groups, and council is able to make those things happen. So that's, you know, it's a really important part of the role of the councillor, is to be working in that big picture strategic space, but also being able to connect on a personal level with your local community and with individuals. Really important skills. And council staff can help develop new councillors in those areas and make sure they've got the right tools and the training that they might need to help them fulfil those roles. What I might do this time is ask each of the panel members a question about their experience with female leaders and the sorts of qualities that have been brought to the role. And what I might do, Councillors Hannan and Ayett, I'll start with Ben. And Ben's had a lot of experience in local government as well, and I know he's worked with female councillors, and I know Ali has too. And so I'll start with them, and then I'll come back to the both of you. So, so Ben, really would like to hear your views on what makes a strong female councillor, and from your experience, are there any female councillors that you would particularly that made a particular impression on you?
Thanks, Tony. So I suppose where maybe even take a little bit of a step back, what I love, or why I love to support women taking on leadership roles in local government, is because women bring different perspectives, and having a diversity of opinion around a table, in my view, is where you get better decisions. So the more that we can have women and men in leadership roles, I think that the more we can have robust discussions, robust debates, and make sure that we take in all sorts of different views before we make those calls. So I think that's, you know, really one of the really key reasons why we need to make sure we get women in local government. As an example, in my former roles at Pittwater, we had a female mayor and deputy mayor at Pittwater. I worked also with Manly Council. Manly Council had a long-standing female mayor who was a strong leader for that community. But the one councillor I want to, I suppose, highlight was actually a young councillor from Warringah Council. It was Councillor Moskall, she was 21 when she got on council, if I remember correctly. I'm probably wrong. I think she might have even been younger. She was 21 when she got on council, and she ran for council with passion, enthusiasm, and drive. She didn't know exactly what local government meant. She didn't know about the governance structures or how to get things done, but she was there because she wanted to make a difference for her local community. Very passionate about youth issues, very passionate about environmental issues. And what I saw is, well, first of all, she got herself on council. And I'm sure there was a whole lot of things that drove her batty about local government, because it can seem very bureaucratic at times. But what she did was that she worked with the other 11 councillors from that council. She talked to them about her priorities, her initiatives. She got them across the line on some big policy changes for that council. And as a result, council resolved to go down a different path on environmental issues, to engage more with young people. And all of a sudden that council had a youth council, youth advisory council, that advised council on youth issues. All of a sudden that council was actually taking action on climate change and wanting to be a leader on climate change. And a lot of that was driven by this one young female councillor, because she brought different thinking, different ideas, passion and enthusiasm. So, you know, that's just one example. But I was so impressed with how she engaged, and also not how she stood up and said, this is the thing we need to do. Actually, what she did is she worked so closely with all the other councillors to get them on board, so that when the decision came to council, it was an easy decision. It wasn't her fighting against council to get her issue done. It was her working with council, with the CEO, with the staff, to come up with a policy that would work and really drive change. So that was, you know, a really great experience.
Thanks, Ben. I think what's great about that story is how young that particular councillor was, and you know, some of her colleagues may have dismissed her as not having life experience, not having enough knowledge. What can she contribute? But clearly, she's brought that passion and, you know, some real values to the role, and that's what's made a difference. So it doesn't need experience, and it doesn't need you to have all that knowledge in coming into the role. Just some passion and some belief that you can serve your community. So Ellie, just wondering from your perspective, is there something that, you know, you can share about in your career?
Yeah, definitely. The one thing that has been a constant theme for me that I've seen from successful women councillors has been the response. What I found over time, the only thing you can't control a lot of stuff that's outside your realm. The one thing that you can control is your response to it and how you respond to it. And that's what I have seen over the years, where the success is thinking outside the square and looking at how to tackle or how to look at an opportunity in something and the way in which it's responded to. I've seen many women bullied. I've seen many women harassed, not only from within their own team or within their own realm, but from outside, from the community as well. And a lot of the time, they're things you can't control, but it's your response to that that's going to determine how you're viewed and how you're perceived out there, which will ultimately determine your success in local government. One of my own little experience, personal experience, Tony, was when I was appointed to the role in the senior executive position. My title was Assistant Deputy General Manager, so I was 2IC. But everywhere I went, I was referred to as the assistant to the General Manager, and often expected to make cups of tea, take minutes, take notes. And the response to that was somebody thinking outside the square at the time, a General Manager. They said, we're going to change that. And a lot of the time it changes from just your language, words you use. So my title was changed to Deputy General Manager, not assistant. And that changed the whole focus and scope. And so something really tiny or little in the response to that changes the whole perspective. You'll have things come across, if you're successful as becoming a councillor, things come across your desk where you think, and you want to just go, or you want to just, you know, really get stuck into it. Sometimes it's good to bite your tongue, get your information, put it in your back pocket, get there ready, because knowledge is power and knowledge is success. So it's so important that if you don't know something, you're not aware of something, find out about it. Come and talk to us. You can talk to, as Ben said, talk to your fellow councillors and try and work together. If there is a challenge or a brick wall, wall. Try and look at it as an opportunity as who else you can get to help mediate to try and build up that one team approach to delivering things, because that's where you'll be more successful in doing things together. But it's all about getting that knowledge and that information and using your resources wisely to get that knowledge and that information to help make you a success. And sometimes it's just thinking outside the square and being a little bit innovative. And that's why you do need that different perspective around the table. Totally agree with Ben about perspectives and being open-minded. We sometimes come into it with a closed mindset when really we need to develop that growth mindset of being open-minded and listening, so as things come to you in a different way, you think, I didn't think of it that way. And that's where you can come to a compromise on a situation, or even, and something, reflect upon the fact that, yeah, this is a different approach, a different way, and all of a sudden things move and great outcomes happen. So your response to things, I think, is really, really important, because it will define you.
Thanks, Sally. It reminds me of Stephen Covey, one of his management consultant, one of his messages is seek first to understand. Yeah, don't jump to conclusions, don't jump to decisions, seek first to understand. Yeah, thanks, Ali. I might hand over to the councillors and ask them from their views. Perhaps you were able to identify a female leader that you may have seen as a model, or maybe you've had a mentor. We'd be really interested in hearing from both of you. So do you want to start, Councillor Hannan? Thanks.
I can think of two varied people that, for different reasons, certainly people here, many of you would remember Liz Kernahan, and Liz did belong to a political party of which I'm independent, but Liz was somebody that everybody knew, no matter whether you were in her side of politics or not. You could go to her with your issue and be confident that she would treat you with full respect and push your issue no matter what it was. Everybody knew Liz, and Liz turned up to nearly all functions she could. And yeah, I can't chain smoke like Liz, rest her soul, but I'd love that really integrated into her community. So that's one. And the other one, and I'm sure most of you will agree, is the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinta Arjun. And I've been reading a lot of things that she talks about. And the difference is for her, and I think this is really important, she doesn't look at her political cycle to make decisions on her political cycle for her own agenda. She looks at pushing strategies that are going to be long-term strategies for the benefit of her country. And I think that's really important in council. And I agree that some projects don't get delivered, but the long-term strategy is really what it should be about. It's not about your own personal agenda of some particular thing. It's about delivering the best you can for the long term of our community. I want in years to come, you know, in 20 years when I'm on my frame, that people go, oh gosh, you guys did a good job to get us where we were. I don't want people going, oh, those people back then. I want to make it this, we have all the basis for an amazing community, and it's about looking in the long term.
That's great, thank you. I think most of the women that I talk to also see that Jacinta Ardern is a wonderful role model, and for me it's about her compassion and her empathy for people on the world stage. Thank you, Councillor Hannan. Councillor Ayett, from your perspective. Oh, I think we're on mute.
Noise.
Just a sec. We can't hear you. Oh, that's better. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd have to second everything that Councillor Hannan said, certainly. For me, three women I think stand out. Definitely Jacinta Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, namely through the leadership she showed during the Christchurch attacks. And she showed leadership and responsibility while also being compassionate. So I found that to be very important. And also Gladys Berejikovan. Gladys, I believe, has shown amazing leadership throughout her term, namely through COVID. And I just feel that she can really communicate to the people, which I find sometimes politicians aren't the best at doing. And she does this wonderfully with a lot of ease. Someone else that stands out is actually a senior lady a senior woman, I should say, in the Liberal Party. Her name is Mary Lou Jarvis, and she's currently now the president of the Women's Council. She's very, very supportive of all women coming on board. She's a very, very active member of her community, very involved in her community. She's currently on Woollahra Council, but I do believe she's been on other councils throughout Australia. I think she was once on Adelaide Council also. She's a very interesting character. So she's a mother of two. Her children are grown and very, very quite successful in their own right. But she's an amazing example because she's always been so active. She is till today. Like, the amount of emails I get from her is amazing. She's just so involved with everyone, knows everybody by name, has everybody's phone numbers, reaches out to everybody. And when she wants to get something done, she gains support across the board, and she's just so open and honest, and she does it with compassion. And that's something that I really, really admire. And there's just so much honesty and realism there. You know, and I hope that she can attract a lot of women with these same characteristics into politics, because it's very important to, you know, bring along a different view, but you also need to bring along this different view, of course, with compassion, with responsibility, and with an outlook for the future. And I feel that she does this brilliantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ayett. It's fabulous to hear you talking about compassion. You know, you both talked about those qualities. Perhaps in the past, there's been a real focus on strength and, you know, gritting the teeth and getting on with the job and not showing the emotional side. And I think what we're seeing is a change in that. And I think Jacinta's helped to lead that. But I think it opens up a whole new perspective on leadership, which is about focusing on people and connecting with people. And I think I will go to the audience and ask some questions in a couple of minutes, but I did just want to carry that trend through, or the focus through this discussion a little bit more, because I think as part of that, we talk about caring, having a caring role, and you've both been through political balancing acts, having young families, and I know Councillor Hannan, your children have come out of the other side and you've survived it, and Councillor Ayett, you're going through it right now. I think it's helpful to just hear from you about how that works for you in terms of balancing acts. So maybe if we start with Councillor Ayett, because you're doing it now, and we've already seen that that dual role this morning, and then I'll come to Councillor Hannan and how she managed it too. So looking forward to hearing from you on that.
Thank you. It's very challenging. I have to be very organised, which, look, I have to be honest, doesn't work all the time. Namely during COVID, when we were doing all our communication via Zoom and all our council meetings, sometimes I'd have the 3 kids in here and it was absolutely ridiculous. And I would be so embarrassed. I'd turn the camera off. But everybody is quite understanding. So I have three children, Solomon, who's 9, Jacob, who's 8, and Eden Rose, who's 2 years old. So I had her during my term, during this term of council. And I have to say, namely, when I had Eden Rose, it's become a totally new dynamic, because I was all of a sudden, you know, my kids had some independence. They were able to shower and feed themselves and dress themselves. And I've gone back to changing nappies. And I really forgot what it's like and how much time it actually takes. With juggling the workload, look, it has been difficult, and at times, namely when I first gave birth to Eden Rose, I'd have to call up a fellow councillor and say, look, this is an issue that a constituent is having. Can you please deal with this? Like, I'm flat out with the new baby and my boys. And look, everybody was very, very understanding throughout the organisation. Even at times I wasn't available, I had to miss some things. But yeah, everyone was very, very understanding. And now after COVID, I believe everybody has kind of found a new work-life balance, namely for myself. I do a lot of things on Zoom, via email. I did say earlier that I don't advertise my phone number, but there are constituents that do have my phone number and give it out quite freely. But yeah, I'm kind of, how can I put this? Never in a rush, if you like. I like to get the correct information before I respond. And if this is going to take me, you know, a couple of days, that's fine, because I'd rather pass on the correct information to my constituents rather, you know, than be made a fool of and kind of not know what's going on and try and get back to them without the correct knowledge or the correct information. And sometimes this does take me a lot longer because I'm a mother of 3 and I am their primary caretaker, of course, and the primary caretaker of the home as well. But yeah, I think after COVID, everything's kind of settled down because now it's more acceptable to work from home or, you know, work via Zoom. And yes, I do miss a lot of things, namely things that are during school pickup or in the morning during school drop-off. Afternoons are quite busy for me because that's once I get my kids home, that's it. Snack after school, homework, shower, get dinner ready, of course, like most mums and most families. But it is a very, very difficult juggling act, but it is very enriching, very enjoyable, rewarding. And I'm glad that I've had this opportunity, and I'm glad that my kids can see me trying to make a difference, of course, with the team and the rest of the councillors. And it's also made my kids like really aware. So if we go to a local park and they'll see something that's not right, or the footpath isn't right, or, you know, the swing isn't up to standard, they'll pull me up on it, which I find quite amusing, to be honest. Then I find myself coming home and, you know, sending an email, the swing at so-and-so park is broken, you know, Solomon and Jacob weren't impressed. And it's quite funny, it's quite amusing, lots of fun, but as well with the fun, there is a lot of stress, 100%. There is a lot of stress. There's a lot to take on and think about, and a lot of learning. Although I am in my fifth year on council, I'm still learning. There's just so much to take on. There is one councillor that I'd like to mention, Councillor Tony Hachidi. So he's been on local council for quite a number of years, knows it like the back of his hand. I actually bombard him with questions, and I'd actually say he was my mentor throughout my term and my time on council. He still is. He's just so knowledgeable. He's a phone call away, always gets back to me. And that was quite refreshing because I am the only woman on the Liberal team. I'm one of four women on the whole council, but I'm the only one on the Liberal team. So it was quite refreshing to have, you know, a senior male who was happy to take on that role and kind of mentor me and give me the ins and outs. Also, of course, the directors are always very supportive and understanding, you know, and, you know, they're happy to even deliver things to the home, namely after I had my daughter. They were very, very supportive throughout that time. So that was really refreshing to see. And it almost encouraged me to, how can I say this, to run again. And it also, you know, I'd love to run again. And it doesn't mean that if I do run again, or if I do want a career in politics, that I can't be a mum as well. I can really have the best of both worlds. But in saying that, if you do want that, you really need to have, a very good support system. I'm lucky enough to have a very supportive partner. I have a lot of support from my mother and my mother-in-law. And I couldn't have done this without them. And I definitely would not have been able to do justice to the position of an elected official if I didn't have that support system around me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ayett. That's really enlightening. So if we've got any young women online or or if anyone in the audience knows of a young woman who might be thinking about running, it can be done, even with those family commitments. So that's been great. And I liked also the fact that you mentioned a mentor, you know, whatever gender that mentor might be, whether they're on council or whether they're not. I think it's always helpful to have a sounding board in whatever role you're in, whether you're an officer like Ali and myself or Ben, but also as a councillor. Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. Councillor Hannan, what about your experience?
So, yeah, you're brave and you do a great job. It's amazing with young children. I certainly didn't enter politics of any description until I had primary school age children. But, and it's important to have a supportive partner that can sometimes do some of the pickups and drop-offs. But I actually found that quite often my children ended up coming along with me. Young Morgan used to fall asleep under the table. But they've actually, again, like your children, they're very aware politically, which is amazing. I've got one son who has taken his wife's surname, simply to show support for the female gender. We've got somebody who's a CEO of a multinational company, and one young fella, the youngest, actually helped with advocating for the All Abilities Playground. He helped them draw up some plans and did a lot of work in that direction. So I think if you've got children, they actually learn from the experience, and taking them along to some events and things is really good. I would relate one funny episode of how my children are politically aware. And we talked about this the other day. When you meet somebody, quite often as a woman, they won't only shake your hand, but they'll pull you in. And I think you described it as the body hug and the kiss. And, you know, if you've got friends that you know, that's fine. But there's often people that use that to intimidate to an extent. And I was at an event in this room, actually, where somebody actually pulled me in and gave me this whopping big kiss. And my son at the time was probably about 17. So he turned around and said, hello, shook the fellow's hand and pulled him in and gave him a big kiss. So I guess your children, if you've got children and you need to manage it, they will actually learn from the experience. They will go places they never thought and see things they never learnt about. I, for events, tend to try and take my husband with me. Tonight is a fundraiser for children's research in the area, and my husband will come with me. Council will pay for you to go to events, but if you do take your partner, you do need to pay for them to go. But he's actually enjoys the social. Unfortunately for me, I don't have, and quietly, I don't have any grandchildren yet. I'd really like that adventure to come, and I'm sure that will take a bit of time when it eventually comes. But you know, for me at this particular point in time, my community is, I have literally nearly all my time to devote to my community, and I want to do that just for the next couple of years so that I can then go and leave it in the hands of all these amazing women that are going to run.
That's fabulous insight for both of you. Thanks. I will ask if there are any questions from the floor or online. Did you have any questions online, folks? Okay, we do have a question from the floor. So we're keeping the questions to the generalised issues. We're not going to deal with any personal issues involving any of the individuals here. And obviously, we welcome your question. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tina, and it's a question about how council advocates to state and federal government on issues that aren't council jurisdiction, but moving forward. Is there a set process, or is it dealing with the local members? How does that process work in terms of advocacy?
All of the above.
Yeah, definitely. We're involved in different networks. The fact we're involved is what Councillor Hannan was saying before about the city deals. That's given us the ability to create great relationships at an officer level as well as a political level, where there's 8 mayors get together and discuss. We're a part of what's called the Western Parkland Councils, and those issues sometimes are well addressed if it's a one big voice that's talking, so we work collaboratively with the 8 councils to raise those. There are often inquiries and we make submissions into inquiries. If there's review of state legislation or review of policy, local government's asked to put in a submission and give feedback. That's another way we advocate. Rerun campaigns. At the moment, we've got a couple of campaigns running, one on the roads and one on digital connectivity, to gather the evidence to enable us to have a good evidence-based approach for when we're advocating to state and federal government, to demonstrate this is exactly what's happening on the ground. We're ground truthing it for you as local government. You can pass a resolution on the floor of the chamber or at a council meeting where you get the support of all your other councils, so it becomes a council position on a state or a federal issue. We also have developed here what we call the state and federal issues paper, which has been adopted by council. There are briefing papers attached to that gives you all the information. And each term of council votes on what are the key issues that we want to advocate for. There's been lots of advocacy. Oh, that's another campaign. I should have mentioned the Picton bypass that we're advocating to state government. So there's lots of different ways in which that we can support council. When I say we, I'm talking from a council officer perspective here. It's been one of my greatest joys, is being that piece of the jigsaw puzzle that helps to give the council the information and facilitate that advocacy on your behalf. There is also close working relationships with the local member and the federal member, and that's often done through the mayor, who is the voice of council. So there's lots of opportunities to be able to advocate on behalf of the community, because like I said, we ground truth it at the closest level to be able to put the perspective up there on the agenda.
Tina, I would add as well, it depends on the issue.
Yeah.
So depending on what the issue is the different tact we might take. So as Ali said, we work with the elected body and we'll advise. So we'll say, right, if this is the issue we want to address, then we suggest this is the way we advocate to get that done. The other way as well is we also look to be a partner with the state or federal government. So we're not going cap in hand to that level of government saying, please, can you give us something? We're going, okay, we're a partner here. We're trying to solve these issues together. We both have a role to play. This is the way we believe we can solve it. And by working together in that sort of fashion, we can often get a much better, stronger outcome in a quicker way than simply throwing some advocacy from the side. So it depends on the issue, but it's something we're pretty experienced at, and also something I think as we grow and change over time, we'll get even stronger in terms of our advocacy, particularly for infrastructure for the local area and some of those big ticket service provisions. You know, public transport is a key one where we are pushing every day for that to all levels of government, and effectively are a broken record in those conversations as well to make sure we get what we need.
I think the city deal shows that we actually, that city deal was local government working with your state and federal governments. Stepping back from council for a minute, my personal opinion is that we need to respect our members of parliament, both state and federal, and we need to work with them quite well. For me personally, I believe council's a really good place to have some independence, because you can give bouquets where they're deserved, but when you've got an issue that really affects you, you don't want to have to follow a party line, and I'm sure that's different council laws. But to be able to advocate for things that you feel strongly about independently for your community, it's not a political way, but always happy to work and respect whoever's elected as our member of parliament, both state and federal, happy to work with them. And yeah, we advocate strongly. Sometimes, I mean, you would have seen the koala petition that we delivered to state government. Mind you, I think it sort of got threw in a basket somewhere to an extent, but we'll keep advocating on those things. But you need to have that respectful advocacy, shall we call it, but be able to give the bouquets, but call them out when it's needed.
Thanks. Councillor Ayett, did you want to add anything about advocacy? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, please, I would. Just in regards to that question, yes, of course, I agree with everything that everyone said. And And also we've had instances at Liverpool where we actually, there's state or federal issues that are very important and close to our hearts, and they do involve our area, our LGA and our constituents. So we'd actually move a motion on the floor of council. Sometimes it could even be an urgency motion. Now the mayor has to accept the urgency motion, but usually the mayor is on board if it's a responsible motion, and we many a time have moved to lobby the state and federal government. We do this lobbying through writing letters, campaigning, bringing it to our state and federal members' attention so they can speak about it at Parliament and bring it up and maybe even move a motion. So yes, although we are at local level, you have a platform which you can use to influence, if you like, state and federal politics, and to voice your community's concerns and even your concerns and your team's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great insight from both of you. We have one more question from the floor. If we could have the microphone just before you ask that question. Thank you. And just identify yourself, your name, and here's the microphone. I'm
Rhonda Van Zeller, and I'm actually not from this Shire. I just want to congratulate you on what you're doing. I'm from the Shire of, Wingecarribee. This has been fantastic today, but I just want to ask two questions. I'm getting my girls to come across to some of these next time. How many hours would you spend a week on average? I know it goes up and down, both of you. And secondly, more to the staff, do you release, or does the government release, the electoral roll once the nominations close, like state and federal?
They do. When you actually put your nomination in, they ask you if you want, it used to be a CD with the electoral roll on, and that will close a couple of weeks earlier. But there are very specific ways you can or can't use it. And I would tell you that I've normally not even taken it because but yeah, you can answer that question. And hours, it varies. So your responsibility, your legal responsibility on council is to turn up to a council meeting once every 3 months. That's what you have to do to fulfill your legal responsibility. The amount of hours councillors put in vary in a normal week from 1 hour to probably 20 hours. It varies, and you can put as much, you can work at it full time. I've had times when I've literally spent all week, and I mean, this week, I think I've been every night somewhere, but I didn't have to go. So and sometimes that's the other thing. For example, last week we had a tourism conference that a couple of other councillors went to. I'll rely on them sharing with me what they gain from it. So if you've got a really good working council, you can actually cover each other and you can share the information so that everybody's across everything.
Thank you. Councillor Ayett.
In regards to the hours, yeah, it differs dramatically depending on what's happening at council, if you have any extra briefings or events, and if you're going to attend all of these events. I myself can't attend all the events. And sorry, what was the other question?
I think it's been answered by Judy, whether you get the electoral roll when the nominations close.
Okay, well, I'd have to take that one on notice if that's possible.
That's a beautiful example of when you don't have the answer. That's something to remember. You don't have to give an answer straight away. I'll take that on notice. It's something that you need the skill to learn. Yeah.
Something you definitely learn in your first term of council is, it's okay to use that line and get the information and then come back. With me, usually it's a phone call to one of the directors, an email, or just calling Councillor Tony Hachidi because he knows so much about council.
Oops, we've lost you. Connection.
Give you the response. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
So they do kind of give you a response in a nutshell, and it's really important to make sure you're well informed. And sometimes for myself, I found that I do know the answer, but I just always like to, go back and double check. Namely, again, because it has been my term on council, and I think that maybe I'd spend a little bit more time just navigating answers and navigating policies and procedures than other councillors would. But when you've been on council, the longer you're on there, it just becomes second nature, if you like. Like when I went into my first council meeting, I definitely wasn't as confident as I am now. Now council meeting has become second nature. I know the etiquette, I know what's accepted, what's not, and I had to move a motion on the floor of council, whereas previously, I didn't have that knowledge. And I kind of feel like I was chucked into the deep end, but there was a lot of support and a lot of inductions for those kind of procedures.
Yeah, there's definitely induction on how to conduct yourself in a meeting, an understanding of all the different terminology. That's going to be another real confronting thing. But again, as women, we tend to want to be perfect. We want to try and show that, we know everything when we don't. Not everybody knows everything. So there'll definitely be induction and how meetings are run, how they're held. Our governance team will certainly, they're an excellent team here at council, will take you through how to raise a motion, how to respond to something, and understanding terminology.
One of the funny things, when I first got elected, I thought I was going to file everything, and I bought this big file box and, newspaper articles and all the policies, and I was going to know it all. And after about 2 weeks, the box was full and I was like, oh, what do I do now? But what you need to know is you don't need to know it all. Your staff and your council will, if I needed to know a policy from or a meeting from 5 years ago, they will provide it for you. So you don't have to worry about those things.
Yeah, that's right. We're here to help. That's our job. Right. As Ali said, there will be an induction program. So we'll talk about it a bit more at the candidate forum coming up. But the first few months particularly, there will be probably an increased need to be present, just to take you through some of those big policies, the big strategies, and to plan about where we are going, and also provide you the training that you need to do your job effectively. And then from an officer point of view, as actually Councillor Hannan said at the very start, every Tuesday night we have something. So council meeting once a month, community forum once a month. The other couple of Tuesdays that are left, we have as a councillor briefing night where we brief the council on key issues that are going on at the moment or key strategic issues going forward. Normally they're in the order of about 2 hours or so, those briefings, and they're done in person, but they're also done online. So we have quite a number of our councillors who attend via Zoom as well. So you don't actually have to come into the council physically to be part of those briefings. The council meetings, however, you do need to come in and be physically present unless it's an emergency or you have something else that's come up, in which case you can ask for permission to Zoom in as well. So, that I would describe as bare minimum, although your legal requirements are the once every 3 months. But really, you want to do a good job. Yep. So get in there and make the most of it.
I think I live here more than at home.
Oh yeah, you do. You do.
and I think Ben, you're right, because what we're looking for is people who are passionate about their community, so that they're going to want to be here and be able to participate in those decision-making processes and be informed about the big picture strategic matters that are coming up. We have so many issues. I'm sure Councillor Ayett, you're in the same boat, that you probably don't really understand all about flood planning, but we've just had a presentation for councillors on flood planning and changes to flood planning. We've undertaken significant reviews of our local environment plan, and we've undertaken studies to support that in a whole range of different areas. And the consultants who've done that work for us have actually come to council and briefed the councillors on the details. So it's not expected that you have a full understanding of all those issues. The information will be presented and shared, and there's always opportunities for questions as well and continued learning. Just following on from that discussion about post-COVID working arrangements and the use of digital technology in the way that we advocate, I thought it might be helpful to just ask both Councillor Ayett and Councillor Hannan how they see a councillor coming into a new council in September 2021. will need to consider social media and digital technology in the way that they approach their new working life, or how you know, whether that's going to be the way they interact with their community, the way that they interact with council and staff, or you know, it might be just a great learning tool as well. So maybe start with Councillor Ayett. How about social media and technology for yourself? Oh, muted. I think that's
there we go.
for 2020 and 21, isn't it? You're muted. Yeah.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
For myself, I'm actually not on any social media platforms. I was in the past, but just for personal reasons, I decided to move away from social media platforms personally. But I do know that council has, our council has a very active social media. Lots of events are posted on there. It's actually a very, very important communication tool. And it's a very useful communication tool because I feel that it, you know, campaigns spread a lot quicker via social media. Now it is something, the council social media is something that I follow, but I don't have any personal pages on there. And sorry, what was the other part of the question?
I suppose using digital technology. You talked about the post-COVID world and how you're able to zoom into things.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, namely for people that have young families, you know, male or female, because I do know that there are men that are the primary carers of their children also, and that are running the household or assisting to run the household. So it's just nice to have, you know, the electronic version available, or you can turn up in person. I mean, today is a prime example. I had the opportunity to join this panel via Zoom or come in, considering my kids had tutoring and I've got my little one at home who my husband is looking after downstairs at the moment. I thought, you know what, I'll just hop on Zoom, and that means during the breaks I can go downstairs, check on her, put on a load of washing because Saturday is my washing. But yeah, namely for families that maybe have a member of their family that have that need extra care. You know, you can be available and still do justice to your role as a professional. And it's very refreshing to see that this is now available to us. And it's unfortunate that we had to go through COVID for it to be available, but it is what it is, and it's a fantastic work-life balance. Well, here we go. Here comes my now.
Oh, she's gorgeous. She's
hi.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Exactly what we're talking about. I think we've all seen that video of the diplomat in Korea, I think it was. Where the little girl came in while it was trying to be a very
mum's trying to grab him.
Yeah, well, she's gorgeous, and that's exactly, I think that's what it's all about. And we certainly encourage our staff to have a work-life balance, and they can work from home some days a week. And it's rare that as officers we would actually go to the city or to Parramatta for meetings. We can do it all online, and it's a great tool, and it really does provide an opportunity for work-life balance that wasn't available before. And I think it helps to open up employment to become more accessible for many people. Councillor Hannan.
So I agree with what you're saying. The difficulty across a lot of Wollondilly is the actual internet reception that we have. I can see some people nodding. So for me, meetings, council have worked to make it as good as it can be, but I always end up coming in here because I can't risk the fact that I'm going to drop out. I would say that it gives an alternative. So if you're away somewhere, you can certainly Zoom in. I'm personally much prefer to talk to somebody face to face if I get the opportunity, but that's my personal opinion. A lot of other people like social media and those things. Social media I watch. I tend not to be on social media a lot, but sometimes I can pick up an issue that somebody's having that they've not known to come to a counsellor to get solved. And sometimes, unless I'm alerted to it, I can't help. So often I'll look at it in that regard. And I guess social media, you need to use productively and don't take things. You have to be resilient with social media. I do note, and maybe Bev could say something about this, that there is going to be a social media law brought in by the local government minister for people who are on council about what your social media can look like. And I think this is about being proactive to stop false information and negative information being put out there. Is that correct, Bev?
Yes, I think it's Minister Hancock. Yes. She's putting out a forum and changing the way, particularly in local government, that you can use social media. They'll have a platform for councillors, which will protect them. It's a protection for councillors because I love social media. I'm on it 24/7. Absolutely love it because it's interesting to me. I'm a person who likes to know the ins and outs of a person's brain and how they act. So, and you know, I challenge myself with their attitudes. So yes, I think that you'll be protected into the future for social media. Have I got time for a question?
Certainly. Thank you both for those responses. I think that's it's really important. So I believe that Bev from the ALGWA has a question.
Bev, just before you ask your question, what's really good is if you've got some friends that can watch social media for you and alert you if there's a problem, so you don't have to be across it all. I think that's really a good hint as well. And
texting's good too. Yep. You'll see counsellors there texting. I've been texting. Yeah. It's great for information and am I doing the right thing? So I've written it down because I think that's a good way to do. And I was alerted when Ellie posed her conversation. And mine's going back to why we're here and support of women and why women and the positive of being women in council. And I'd like Ben to jump in on this, and Ellie and the rest of the panel, need they be. I'm putting you on the spot, Ben. And thinking of my experience, I've found women need to have a seat at the table. You alerted to this, Ellie. And just before I go any further, I'm an ALGWA member. Have we got any other ALGWA members in the audience? I know Ellie and Judith, sorry, it's my age, ALGWA members. In fact, Ellie has been absolutely brilliant in the past. She actually did our strategic plan for us as a member of ALGWA. A brilliant young woman, absolutely brilliant. So thinking of my experience, I've found women need to have a seat at the table of knowledge and decision making, and importantly, networking and the starting point of the role of being on a board as a learning tool. I found, because I'm not educated, believe it or not. So for 25 years, and I've even worked in this Wollondilly Shire Council for a very short time. So I've worked in the industry for 25 years. My last job was in the planning department, so I understand a little bit of what you're talking about, all those other things. But the important thing for the women here and women who are online, who I'm sorry I can't see you, is that you need a peer group behind you. You can't do it on your own. The first peer group is your husband or boyfriend. If they're not on board, well, forget about it, because if they're not on board, you're not on board. Secondly, you need men. We advocate to have more men participate with ALGWA. While I was the membership officer, I had associate members and they were men. I've been the secretary and the membership officer of ALGWA, and while on the board. And Wollondilly, I believe, is a member of ALGWA, which covers all the councillors. It doesn't give you a seat at the table of being on the board, so you have to be an individual member. So I suggest take a look at our website and become a member if you really fair dinkum. Ben, we need people like Ben and other men, influential men, to be beside us, not on the other side of the table. We want you right here. We want you sitting at our conferences. You are allowed to come. We actually like it. And some men really like it because they get to dance with all the women, because there's not very many men there. So, you know, men, we need you. We want to be partners. We don't want to tell you how to do it. We want you to ask us our opinion and work it out together. So importantly, if you can get on a board, if you're not going to run this time, then use the time to get on ALGWA board. They choose a board every 12 months. You have to be a financial member by December, and you can put your name up and nominate. So it's not hard to get on a board. Sometimes it's hard for them to get you off a board. I know I've been censured on one of my other boards, but fortunately I'm smart because I have men beside me, and they're the power brokers. So, you know that. But my question was, Ellie, and I know from your experiences, and anybody else can answer this as well, and particularly Ben. Ellie, can you see any problems in getting women into leadership roles? Should women look towards peer groups for support and mentoring? Because I know in the past, and you alerted to the fact that the name change and the tea making, I don't know how to make tea. I don't know how to do any of those things. I don't do any women things, and I certainly don't do any man things. My husband has to be home on a Monday to put the rubbish out. That's not my job. So you have to be a dominant but empathetic and female leader. You don't have to be a female to be a male leader. You don't have to take on the male role. You have to have strength. So in your experiences, Ellie, and I know you've had several because I've followed your career, what do we do wrong, or how do people perceive us that we can't get into leadership roles so easily as men? I know it's about the male going to the golf course, going to the pub, I've been and all that thing.
It's about how you network a lot.
That's right.
It's about putting yourself alongside others you want to be like, and putting yourselves into making sure you get involved. Don't stand back and wait to be invited in. You've got to actually step in and be involved. But it's also about your response. I talked about response before to certain situations, to be able to do some of that education around we're all in this together. It's not about being a man. It's not about being a woman. It's about how, as you say, how we work together to find those solutions and moving forward. But it's also how you question. Sometimes it's just changing the way in which you question, because that can sometimes be taken as you're being defensive or you're being aggressive. Quite often women can be seen that way, when really all you're doing is trying to gather some information. So it's about a bit of reflection on how you ask those questions, and also again about being a bit innovative around how you can resolve a solution, like just the name, like I said before, title change. I was in a situation, I'll give you a little example here. I was actually the director for Works for one area. We actually swapped as deputy general managers our portfolio. So I then had the responsibility of the outdoor staff, the depot, and it was certainly a very male-dominated area. I didn't come across as knowing everything. I didn't know everything. I had to ask. I had to gather knowledge. And it was interesting. One of the fellas out there said, "Oh, one day I rang up about seeing a piece of machinery. There was no safety equipment around it." And I rang up and I said to this fella, "Oh, I've just gone past this yellow digger thing, you know." Straight away, I thought, "Oh my goodness, what have I said?" You know, to someone about couldn't even. He said to me, "You've got to learn how to name those pieces of equipment, Ali. My 7-year-olds even know the names." And I felt real deflated. Now I could have stepped back and not, you know, and felt so inadequate or inappropriate. But no, I reflected on it, and I came in the next day and I said, I went through those catalogues and I learnt the names of all those pieces of equipment. I said, there's Larry the long arm reach arm mower. I said, there is Douglas the digger. You know, so I made it a bit humorous, and it broke down those barriers. And from then it's sort of, oh, come on now, let's go out and have a look. Get yourself immersed, involved. So it's how you think outside the square and use those situations so as you're all working together. And yeah, it's about responding at those times. You don't know everything. You don't have it all. And it's about finding the knowledge and asking the right questions in the right way to work together and work with each other. So it's not about thinking, oh, I failed at this or I didn't do that right. And we sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of us as women do that. It's about our response to it and how we actually can work together.
There's another side to that as well.
So just one sec. We need to use the microphone if we're talking from the floor. Thank you.
I think there's another side to that. Don't think, to start off, and Judith will probably know this, you may all do, that women don't necessarily work well together. And
women uplifting women.
Exactly.
And I think if you go into this saying to yourself, I am going to work with other women, because if and when you get onto council, it could be the woman sitting next to you who will support your motion, but she's not going to if you're a bitch beforehand, right? And we've got an instance in Wingecarribee where one of the candidates invited all the candidates to come together, and the sort of responses she got for the other women are appalling. They see her as their opposition, not wanting to work with her. So what are they going to do when they get on council? And I think that's a big thing for women, and I've found that in all my life. Get on with your women, work with your women, because they can support you when others won't.
Can I just carry on with that one too? The fact that, and that's why I mentioned the fact of ALGWA. We have a very young councillor in Fairfield by the name of Sarah Yilmaz. I hope I got it right, Sarah. She became the deputy mayor, and she belonged to a political party, but she didn't agree with all the political views, and so she challenged them, and she went through a terrible time of bullying and harassment by her own members, by other people, and she sought help from ALGWA. Now she's a strong, vibrant young woman on many outside committees and advocating, I think, for disabilities and a whole heap of other things. So I would, if it's not ALGWA, we've got, if you go onto the ALGWA site and see our members, you'll also see there also members of Local Government Association New South Wales, with Linda, who's just, I think, stepped down, she's from Sydney City as the president. I think Daria Turley has put her hand up at the conference just recently to be going forward as the new president, hopefully. So women do sit in really good positions. I now, and as I said, I'm not educated, I'm a nobody. I have a problem. I can send a message through to the parliament, to parliamentarians, and say what's happening here and get a response because I network. I know several people around New South Wales and local government in high positions, not because I'm anybody, because I network. And I think that's your important thing. It's not about whether you know the policies and the strategic plan. I know nothing, truly, I don't. But God, I want to now, and please feel free to speak because I can talk all day. I'd like to bring Ben in as to asking Ben how men perceive women and how, in his role, how council can help in the community to bring women forward into leadership roles, as in your community committees, all those other things. So.
Thank you. Thanks for those questions. I think
Thanks,
Ben
Bev.
and Councillor Hannan had also wanted to jump in.
Okay. There's a couple of questions in there, Bev. Just a couple. So first of all, ALGWA, sure, I'm in. Sounds like fun. Second of all, in terms of women in leadership positions, so I suppose I can predominantly reflect on my own personal experience and my personal approach. I mean, for me, what my job is, I feel, is to give people the opportunity, the environment that they can succeed no matter who they are. And so for me, I'm very proud and happy that we've got two strong female leaders on our executive team. And I want us to enable and empower women across the organisation to succeed in all sorts of roles. On International Women's Day, we had a forum actually in this room right here with staff who are in non-traditional roles. Ali talked about leading the works team. Our current manager for the infrastructure operations team, which includes all the guys with the diggers, and I don't know the names either. All the guys with the diggers is a female leader. She's an experienced female leader, but she's led that team, which is predominantly male dominated. And she has turned the culture around from one where morale was low, and staff weren't overly happy to one where they are happy, morale is high, they feel empowered and strengthened. And the reason why I believe she's done it is because of her as an individual, but also because of her style of leadership. And that's what I want to see more of. You know, you talked about before women not becoming men, women not taking on the male role. Well, for me, I think it's actually more about men and women taking on more of the female leadership capabilities and characteristics. So the empathy, the kindness, the care, the considered and thoughtful opinions. And so for me personally, I actually had some strong female role models in my life, and I've modelled their behaviours. And I try and model their behaviours when we're making decisions. And in terms of how I lead this organisation, we lead this organisation. You know, the top things that we've tried to push in the last 2 years at council that we care about and are committed to our staff. The trust is the first thing we do. And when we make decisions with our staff and our people first. And that to me is, you know, the basis of female leadership. So if we can espouse that within the organisation, I don't see why we can't at an elected council level as well, because that's what I think we should be doing and trying to do. So I hope that answers your question, Bev.
Yeah, I think it does. I think what we're saying is because I'm very much, and particularly in interviews, having, smell out boys, gender neutral interviews. I dislike gender becoming into our interviews. And gender neutral is good in certain areas of our society, and I think particularly when you're going for an interview, it should be based on merit based, and it should be not on gender. And I found throughout my lifetime, which has been very vast and had many jobs, that in many occasions, if you don't belong to the local pub or the golf club or wherever, and it's not a gender neutral interview, you don't have any chance of getting the job, regardless of what your experience is. And I know that many, and just my personal, and not family or anything else, just personal networking with Ellie, several people in areas outside of Wollondilly have missed out on her excellent experience and whatever. You've got, as you said, 2 wonderful directors, but I don't know our other director, unfortunately. I'm sure I will get to know her. But yes, so yes.
Bev, one thing I forgot to mention actually is something that we're piloting and introducing in our recruitment system that you might be interested in. That often recruitment systems are all about capabilities, right? So are you a really good driver of that digger? We've actually piloted an approach which we're going to roll out across the organisation, which has capabilities and values. And so we'll actually have a whole lot of scores within that interview process regarding people's individual skills on, you know, the key issues they need to in terms of their job, but also their values. Are they someone who really displays strong integrity, respect? Do they look after other people? And we score that through the process. And at the end of the process, those values are a really key part about how we make a decision on recruitment. And, you know, that is what you're talking about, which is actually not making a decision based on gender or just capabilities, but also their values and what they're all about. Because what we want is we want people to come here who fit into the culture, who care about each other, respect, who are here because they want to make a difference for the local community. And that's what that process is all about. Now, I might just give over to Councillor Hannan because I think you wanted to add some things.
I was going to say, I agree with all of that, but the first step for women to get into leadership roles is to put themselves forward. And that's what you're all doing or looking at by being here today. And it's not about I can't or I don't have time or anything else. You all have all the skills. And as I look around, you don't even have to run for councillor. You could all run for mayor and do a good job because you have the support. You will have hopefully the support of your councillors and your staff. You shouldn't undervalue each of you. You can do anything. Every single one of you that I see can do anything. You just have to put yourself forward. And that's the first step. And then you can take on working with everybody else and all the rest of it. But every single one of you need to know you have every capability to do anything. Just put yourself there.
Yeah, I think this has been an excellent discussion. I might just ask Councillor Ayett if she wants to add to it. I will be, just before I hand over to you, Councillor Ayett, I was at a local government conference earlier in the week, and this is exactly a trend across many organisations within local government and also outside of local government, where there's more of a focus on attitude and interpersonal relations. And the view is that you can actually develop the skills and train people in the knowledge, but they have to have the right attitude. They have to be the right fit. And I think that's what Ben's focus is here with our recruitment processes. We want people who are the right fit in the first instance. And that's what we're saying. We want people who are the right fit on our council, and those people are the ones who are passionate about community and who want to make a difference. Don't have to have all the knowledge or skills to start with. Councillor Ayett.
Thank you. I'd have to agree with everything that's been said so far. And I'd also like to say, definitely, women need to lift each other up and support each other and encourage each other. And it doesn't only fall on us, it falls on men in our community, our partners, our brothers, our fathers, our uncles. I feel like sometimes women need a little bit of encouragement and a bit of a push. I know for myself, after I had my first son, he had some health issues, and then I had my second son and I was at home for 5 years. And then I actually nominated for the council in 2012. And after I put in my nomination, I just felt a little bit deflated, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to withdraw. And I did withdraw. And then second time around came in 2016, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to nominate again. And I did actually consider withdrawing again, because it is a male-dominated space. It's a male-dominated area, and I didn't know, all the support systems that were available to me professionally at a professional level, whether it be inside council or related to the party. Anyway, and then this time around, I stood my ground, and I thought, no, I'm going to have a go and I'm going to do it. And, you know, it was little things like I hadn't been on a computer for God knows how long while I was, changing nappies and caring for my two children. But there was a lot of support and a lot of training. The induction is fantastic. And there was something else that I went along to that I'd really like to mention. It was a course run by the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and I did the director course. And they do actually run a lot of courses that are open to councillors, and they're very professional, and they're recognised. And that really helped me a lot, just to build confidence, build, directorship, vocab, know what the legal limitations were, what was expected of me legally. So I'd encourage everybody who has the opportunity to do a course through the Australian Institute of Company Directors to do so. It's unfortunate that I only had time to do one. I would have liked to do more, and that's something that, is on my to-do list. But yeah, in a nutshell, we do. Women have to lift each other up. Men have to lift their women up, and we just have to support each other and get the right people with the right skills into the right areas. And you have to have a go.
That's great. That's great.
Thank you. You talk about
if you don't know what you're capable of.
Yeah, thanks.
And,
oops,
yeah.
I'm just losing you a bit then, Councillor Ayett. Just when you said you have to have a go, we all agree.
Oh.
We've lost you. I think Eden Rose has muted you.
They know how, don't they?
And this is one of the things we're still struggling with. You're muted.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, you mentioned having a go, and you also talked about the company directors course. Two things that really resonate with us here, because we're certainly encouraging our councillors in the next term, I think, to look at that company directors course. I've done it myself, and I agree with you. I think it's a fabulous learning platform, and it will help councillors understand more about the broader role of being a director. I think Councillor Hannan was going to comment too.
I was going to say that we're talking with the CEO that was something that they were talking about, bringing to council laws, the company directors portions of that course, to help everybody. And that will not only see you well through council, but everything else that you do going forward.
I would highly recommend it. Great course.
Yeah.
Really, really good in terms of bringing that strategic view, governance frameworks, the financial frameworks. It really adds a lot. It is, but the proposal would be the council pays for the cost.
And ALGWA.
I'm sure Can I tell you, as a member of ALGWA, every year ALGWA run what they call a Marjorie Propsting Fund, and councillors and staff can apply as financial members to win that. They have one a year, and that goes towards any improvement within your capacity as a councillor or as a staff member. So not only do the council have to provide training for councillors, but if you're on ALGWA, you do. And every year, my staff at Penrith Council were always in the mix, and most times, unless they didn't apply, they got that scholarship.
And we've had council staff that have benefited from that scholarship.
That's great. Look, I think we're looking at coming to a close now. So I thought that we might wrap up by asking each of the panel members with some closing remarks. You know, what do they think would be the key messages for a potentially aspiring candidate to take away from today's session? So I might start with Ali, and then I'll come around to the whole panel.
Oh, thanks, Tony. Yeah, look, key messages today: knowledge is power. Educate yourself. Ask questions. Grab a network, a support system around you. There are resources and there are contacts, and we've got lists of those available here today for you if you're not sure where to start. I know we haven't covered the topic or mentioned about campaigning, because that's what you're about to head on to. It's something that we can't really assist you with as council officers. That's crossing the realm into that, but we can provide information. There are ways in which you can get information through formal applications for information you need from your council. You just need to put in what's called a GIPA application to get information. But there's a whole table down there, and there will be information disseminated to those online about how to campaign with key contacts and what to do and what to consider. So I encourage you to collect that information and have a good read of it. Be mindful of your dates, because there is a whole framework in which you've got to work within as a candidate. There's dates and timeframes, certain amounts of dollars you're only allowed to spend on your campaign. Don't get tripped up by not having the knowledge and knowing what you need to do. More importantly, think about your response to things, because it will define you. Okay.
Thank you, Ali. Great messages. Ben?
I suppose I would wrap up by saying it's an incredibly exciting time to be at Wollondilly. Sorry for our Windy Caribbean friends, but Wollondilly is obviously in a much more exciting place to be. Look, our Shire is growing. Okay, the growth is here, and we have a really bright future ahead of us. And the role of a councillor is to come together with the rest of the council to lead that change, to take advantage of the future that's ahead of us. You know, we are going to grow, we are going to change. Let's make that a fantastic change, and a change for the better, so that we can really, you know, bring to life the vision of the elected council, which is an enviable lifestyle of historic villages, modern living, rural lands and bush. And what that's about is maintaining the special places we have, but also embracing the future that's ahead of us. The other thing I would leave everyone with, if you don't mind, is also, if there are people that are considering running, I'm offering to any candidate, if they want to come in and have a one-on-one chat with me to find out any question they would like to ask, or whatever that might be, you're welcome to do so. My contacts are on our website. That offer is open to everyone. You just got to make a time to come on down and have a chat as well, because there might be things you don't want to raise right here, or things that percolate through your brain that you want to ask. Come and have a chat. I'm happy to talk at any time. And the third thing, if you don't mind, Tony, is I hope to see more women in local government. I hope to see more women on Wollondilly Shire Council next time around. To me, diversity brings great decision making, so I hope to see a great council ahead of us.
Great, thanks very much, Ben. Councillor Hannan or Councillor Ayett, we'll ask you for your final messages. Do you want to go first, Councillor Ayett?
Yeah, will do. I'd just like to say that more recently there's been, you know, a political awakening, if you like, across all parties, recognising that more women should be involved and need to be involved. Namely women from, you know, all walks of life, professionals, mothers, I do believe that this is needed at all levels, not only at local. I think it's also needed at state and federal level, that we need more women to be involved. Settle down, I'm so sorry. Here you go. Yeah, we do need more women involved at all levels of politics, federal, state and local. You know, we're lucky enough to live in a country where we can be involved and we have the opportunity to. So let's take it, let's support each other, have a go and use the resources available. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's great messages.
She's resilient.
And absolutely. And we're seeing this message coming out of state and federal parliament at the moment, aren't we, in terms of female-friendly workplaces and family-friendly workplaces. And I think we've just seen an example of why that is. Look at, you know, what Councillor Ayett is juggling and doing it well. So, yeah, thank you so much for your contributions today. We'll just wrap up with Councillor Hannan.
Well, you all have it in you. You can all make a difference instead of people sitting back and saying anything. You will enjoy yourself so much. You will make so many friends and have so many experiences that you just can't even believe. Down a mine, up in a tower, all sorts of things, and meet all sorts of people, interesting people from all walks of life. It's your opportunity. Every single one of you have the ability to do it all. I have full faith in that. I am happy to answer any questions, be they of the campaigning type things that staff can't do. If you're with me or against me, I don't care either way. I want more women around that table, and Wollondilly is just an amazing place to be in and live in, and by us all contributing, we can make it the best we can for the future.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hannan. Look, I think there's been some fabulous insights today from our panel members about what it is to be a councillor, about what it isn't, what you don't have to have. And I think it is really helpful for us in our goal to get more diversity into council and obviously into our organisation as well. But in this case, we're talking about council. I really would encourage you to take those messages away, take up the CEO's offer if you want to talk with him about having a one-on-one, and certainly reach out to Councillor Hannan. I'm sure Councillor Ayett would be happy for you to send her an email. You can get her details on the Liverpool Council website. So it's really helpful. Ali and I look forward to the election ahead and to welcoming some new
thank all the council staff too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Welcoming councillors to Wollondilly. And thanks, Councillor Hannan. So not only do I want to thank the panel members, I'd like to thank the governance team and our IT team who have helped put this together. Matt Toro is here. He's our Assistant Director, People and Legal. And Governance, sorry. And Governance. So, yeah, thanks to Matt and to all the team for your help in pulling this together, and to our IT team. We talk about the digital transformation. Most of us are still a long way behind, but so thank goodness we have experts and really helpful people in our IT department to make it all happen, including saving Councillor Ayett an hour's drive each way and allowing her to continue to look after her family responsibilities on a busy Saturday morning. So thank you to everyone involved. Thank you all for coming today. Really appreciate you making the commitment to consider running for council or sharing that information with other parties. And thank you to all those people online. As mentioned earlier, this will be available as a recording for you to view later. And you can fast track the bits you don't want to listen to if that's the case, and just tune into the sections you do. And there are handouts at the back of the room for those of you who are here today. Please help yourself to any material that may be useful. And I believe that we'll have the information available online as well for people to download. So I think that's it. Is there anything else we need to cover to the wonderful team behind me? What? All good? And we did just before you actually close up.
I'm going to ask a question. Anybody who doesn't want to have a photo taken, please don't worry. But ALGWA, I've had the president on a texting and she said, can we get a photo COVID safe behind the screen with Tina in it for our magazine and our website, if you don't mind today.
I hope that's okay. Is that okay with you, Councillor?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's another question.
Yeah. Hi, I just wanted to thank Council and the other representatives and the councillors that came on board to running this today. I think it's very good, and I agree with everything you're saying, that we can do it as women, and we will. And just wanted to say thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming along. Thank you. Okay, and thanks also again to ALGWA for your support and your initiative in promoting this across local government in New South Wales. I think it's really important. In the last slide in the web, the slide package is a whole list of useful links. So again, that's online. You can download those links, and that might help you in your planning for a campaign and running for council. Thank you, everyone. We'll leave it at that, and we'll just keep you online if we can, Councillor Ayett. Thank you. Thanks very much.